All right. I'm Noah Barrasso. This is the cast. We're here with Rebecca Clyde. Thanks so much for having us here at your beautiful office. Give us the quick background of you, and now it sounds like you have a couple companies you've been rocking and rolling with.
Yes, absolutely. So thanks for coming in.
Yeah.
I'm really excited to have you here. And, before I even introduce myself, I want to make sure I give you a little welcome gift. So everybody that comes into a meeting for the first time gets a welcome gift. And so today you get a welcome gift.
That's amazing.
So I want to make sure that we cover this. So here you go.
Oh, you actually wrapped it?
Yes.
Because I'm that guy at Christmas that just hands people
wrap.
the gifts.
It's a gift bag.
All right.
So let's take a look what we've got here.
Let's the best smell in the world, hands down. Oh, how to be successful without hurting men's feelings. That's so funny.
So I'll explain to you, and to your listeners, because I think these two items really shine a light on you and really what you're all about. So the first item here, this Fabuloso cleaner, you once at an event mentioned somebody was cleaning the floor because I spilled water.
Yep. Cocktails and Creators. Shout out to Zach and the people at Coplex. Yes.
And you were like, oh, I love the smell of Fabuloso. And I took note of that because, first of all, most men aren't really that familiar with cleaning products and the many varietals involved. And so I was like, yeah, this guy, he understands his cleaning products. He even has a favorite. So I wanted to make sure you were well stocked for all of your house cleaning endeavors.
The story about this is we would grow up going to Mexico. My grandparents always had a place in Mexico, and this is like the smell of Mexico is Fabuloso. So it's like nostalgic. It's amazing. I have it in a squirt bottle at home. I mix with water and I spray it on all my floors just to have a fresh scent. Thank you so much. Now explain this guy.
So, and this kind of segues in. So the modern, this is a very modern man, understands his cleaning products, isn't afraid to tackle a mopping job, right? And so my thought was, some men are going to be threatened by you. They're going to look at that and be like, this guy has one up on me, right? And so I think you, just by virtue of that, will probably identify a lot with the feminist movement and with women being successful. Mm-hmm. And so this book is a really great approach to how to be successful without hurting men's feelings. And I'm sure it's not just women.
Right.
This guide is not just for women, but it's for all people. And so I want to make sure you have a chance to reference it. And my very best strategy in this whole book, it comes with a mustache at the end. So it says, if all else fails, just wear a mustache and everything will be fine. So
do you guys have mustaches floating around here? Because you are the creative company.
There is a cutout, a mustache cutout that you can wear.
Okay.
So that's the one thing a lot of women have a struggle with is growing a mustache.
Right.
It's just our hormones don't produce them very easily, and so when we are out there fundraising and we're trying to, appear more like the other male founders, that can sometimes help.
So segue from this book into that, because you started Ideas Collide.
Yes.
Which I believe you told me 60% females.
Yes, yeah, we have a pretty strong female population at Ideas Clyde.
So explain that a little bit, like how did that your upbringing, and then how you created a company that was more dominant on the female sense, and pros and cons of that.
Oh, sure. So Ideas Collide started almost 15 years ago, so it's been a good while. I think 14 to be exact. I lose track sometimes with time. And it was the beginning of kind of this notion of how could a full-service agency exist that really provided that high-level view into different marketing channels? Sometimes there's this idea that having a really specific marketing company is great, like somebody who just does search or somebody who just does social media. But the problem with that is that then your campaigns end up being very disconnected. And as a client, you end up with 20 different agencies that all are running on their own program without any single view. And so Ideas Collide was really born to address that issue and say, hey, could we create an agency that had a broader understanding of what the entire, the complexity of all the moving parts in a marketing program look like? Mm-hmm. And if you already have another agency that's doing one of those things, that's okay, because we can work with them. We understand the language and we can collaborate. But if not, then we can also do it for you. So that was the idea, the thesis behind Ideas Collide. And it started with a few small clients. It was a team of 3 of us at the beginning. And then we moved into this space back in 2009 with just this little corner, and then little by little started to expand.
So rewind, it reminds you of like spring break and just all the amazingness.
So you said your grandma lived in?
So my grandparents had a motorhome, like a trailer.
Uh-huh.
It was their second little like getaway, and it was right across from down the street from Manny's and Rocky Point.
Oh, in Rocky
So there's like those
Point,
trailer
yes.
parks, but they're like cool trailer parks. It's not like, and so we went as kids and we'd grow up
Nice.
going there, and it was right across from the beach, and everything smelled
like
Fabuloso, or I always say it wrong, Suavitel.
Suavitel. That's
Suavitel,
Suavitel.
which I have.
The fabric softener.
Yeah, which I thought was an actual detergent until my mom called me out on it, dying laughing on the phone. I'm like, Mom, look at it, I got the detergent. And I used like full cupfuls to wash my clothes, and
Well, at least you tried.
I did. So now
At
I have
least,
to.
at least there was laundry being
All
done.
right, back on track.
Yes.
So let's go back to. So there's 3 of you that started the company.
Yes. So Mike Mason, Matthew Clyde, and myself, Rebecca Clyde.
Okay. So as a female founder, let's kind of touch on that. Share with people how that was. It was this, you said, almost 15 years ago. The pros and cons, and you know what it took to be successful as a female entrepreneur in maybe a more dominant male world. Is that fair to say? When it came to the marketing world,
it's interesting. In the marketing world, I really didn't identify any issues that I knew of.
Yeah.
Right. I felt like because a lot of the decision makers in the marketing world tend to be women.
Okay.
I just didn't feel ever like it was a handicap in any way.
Good.
Where I started to notice it a lot more was more recently in starting my new company, Botco. Because that's when I started to notice I would go to these investor meetings and there would just be all men in there. Or I would go to a pitch competition, lots of pitch competitions, and I might be the only female founder pitching. I dressed very differently. As you can tell, I'm not wearing a plaid shirt and a Patagonia vest. And Allbirds.
Ever since you brought that up, you told me that I went to the conference in Vegas, and everyone, I think I went home like burned my Patagonia vest, which I didn't wear it to be like, you know, the investor type person. I had a pair of Allbirds too, and I'm like, I'm never wearing those again. Dress code, don't be that guy or gal and wear Patagonia vest with Allbirds.
I actually have thought about getting one just to wear it facetiously to those meetings. Like
an Allbird vest. That's what we should do.
Yeah.
There we go.
I should just go all in.
Yes.
Yeah, there's, and I get it, in the VC world, it's very much what we call a mirrortocracy, right? It's not a meritocracy about who's really got the best ideas, but it's who looks the most like the last great idea that was successful, right? And that's how investors decide their next investment.
Right.
And so it's just like dirty data going into AI. If you have a biased algorithm or an algorithm that is based on inherently biased data, then the AI is going to make poor biased decisions going forward. And if you think about it, that's exactly the same way VCs make their decisions today. They look at the past and they say, this is what worked in the past, so this is what I'll invest in the future. And that's why less than 3% of VC money is going to women founders.
Oh, wow.
So it's a function of that. It's a function of known networks. So people tend to trust someone who knows who they know through someone else, right? And so you're more likely to take a meeting with somebody that was introduced to you through your buddy from college or somebody from your previous job, right, than just somebody who cold calls you. And unfortunately, a lot of women are not in that inner circle just because they have other relationships. And so they get excluded from a lot of those invitations. And so that's another issue.
Right.
And so just kind of the problem exacerbates itself. I would say that here in the Valley, I don't sense that as much. Like I really, when I go to San Francisco, I've participated in a lot of pitch competitions there, and I've gone to a lot of VC events there. I definitely sense it a lot more acutely there. I feel like here, I don't as much, and maybe it's because more people know me, and this is my home, like my hometown, basically at this point.
Right.
And so I don't feel that genderization as much here in my networks. But it doesn't mean that it's not happening. It's just not as obvious to me in my experience. And then we also have some really progressive founders and accelerators like Coplex. For example, Zach makes a really good point of making sure his invitation list is more diverse. Like, people like him are thinking about it and actively doing something about it, right? Instead of just saying, well, that's just how it is, that's somebody else's problem to solve.
Yeah, kind of like looking at your shirt and being fortunate to help you guys out too, or you girls out, with girls in tech. Talk about girls in tech. And one thing that caught my eye is it's not just for girls. So it's not like you're segregating yourself as we're girls only, so all you do this, all of us do this. But men are welcomed as well. Touch base on that, your position with that organization, kind of what you girls are doing. Yeah.
So Girls in Tech is a global nonprofit that supports advancing women in technology all the way from the classroom to the boardroom. So we have a pretty broad mission. And I'm the co-managing director here for the Phoenix chapter. And myself and Melissa Drake, we founded this chapter. 2016 was when we got together to organize, and then 2017 was when we launched. And we launched at the Science Center with more than 400 people, many of whom, I would say about a third of the attendees were men. And it was a lot of dads, mentors, and employers that were bringing their female teams or daughters or family members to be part of the content and be part of the experience. So that's the cool thing, is that we really wanted to cater to not just this idea of women being the victims in the story, but actually about men being partners in breaking through some of these barriers.
So talk about your new company, Botco.ai.
Yes.
A lot of people watching will have no idea what AI is. Explain that real quick, and then go into this new kind of spinoff.
Sure. So Botco.ai is a conversational marketing platform. So what we do is we help businesses have conversations with their customers using automated software, so systems, which are essentially the AIs. And so just like Alexa, you can have a conversation with Alexa or with Siri. Say you wanted to make a deal with Kaiser or inquire at Kaiser about real estate or about a potential deal. So there's a couple ways I could do that today. I could call the front desk at Kaiser, or I could send an email, look up online, go to your website, and fill out a form, probably, right? Well, what if I could send you a message, the business a message, like over a text message or Facebook Messenger or whatever messaging platform, and I would get an immediate response, right? I didn't have to wait for somebody to call me back or to email me back. And I could get all my questions answered through a messaging experience. Right, that's what we're really helping businesses do at scale, because our customers have thousands, or if not millions, of customers that are trying to communicate with them constantly with questions, needs, inquiries, and they're waiting sometimes way too long to get a response back. And what we have found is companies leave money on the table because they can't get back to people quickly enough, and they have a lot of missed opportunities.
Is that so? I mean, this isn't something new, the AI, when it comes to popping up like a pop-up. What kind of separates you guys, or you girls, both, from the competition, and how do you ensure there's a human that eventually contacts? So use that example. Someone inquires about a space, a building, an office space, industrial, whatever that looks like, and they want someone to respond. We'll say that's a Thursday, they'll get back Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday afternoon. Might be too late, right? That's just, I feel disrespected. I'm not, there was no, time was wasted reaching out to me. How do you make sure something like that doesn't happen? It's not just all AI. Because I'm sure we've all had that negative experience. Sure.
So there's really three parts of this story that are important. So the first is how we communicate, right? Messaging has become the most preferred way that people communicate. I mean, I see this all the time. People get a phone call and they actually decline the call and then just message back. I see this behavior all the time, right? Like, don't call me, just message me, right? That's how we like to communicate.
That's so true.
Largely. So number one. Number two, as businesses, if we're on the receiving end of that, we have to be able to get back to people right away, because they don't want to call us either. They just want the answer. And so the ability to automate responses and automate that interaction on the messaging channel that people want the most, which is on the channel people want the most, which is a messaging, texting driven channel, and to do it in a way that's intelligent, right? Those are the three things that have to happen so that it works well. And the intelligent part, that's where the AI component comes in. So does the software understand, the AI understand the context of the question, what your intent was, and what is the right response to give back to you? And so being able to marry up those two things, that's what creates intelligence in that interaction and ultimately creates a satisfactory or a great experience for the customer on the other side. Now, the handover to the human is also really important. Like for you guys, what you want is to book an appointment or potentially to get a tour scheduled, whatever the call to action might be. So we can train the AI to answer the questions and then help that person get the appointment booked. Plugging into your calendaring software, whatever it is that you're using, Google Calendar, Calendly, Outlook, any cloud calendaring product, and get that appointment dropped on your calendar and also confirmed on that potential customer's phone as well. So it's on both of your calendars at the same time. And the AI can handle that whole interaction.
That's super interesting. So if someone's on the other end of it, will they know that it's AI?
Yes.
So they're okay with that because their answers.
Yeah, they're getting the right
questions
answers.
are being answered and their stuff's being booked and they're being looked after.
Right.
It's not like zero. You call someone and you're like, just operator, I want to talk to a human.
But that's a real scenario too. So there are situations when I really do just want to get Noah on the phone, not an AI.
Right.
Well, we have built into our product that prompt available. So if it's a situation like a 911 type situation and we really need to talk to a person, the bot there's a whole capability where the bot can go silent and a human can take over the conversation. And then when the human is done, they can put it back into the bot's kind of inbox, so to speak. So this kind of seamless back and forth between the bot and humans is what we try to enable for companies. And I don't know of anybody that would implement a bot without that human handover.
Right. So how did you create this? Like, where did this come from? Where did this, you're running a creative agency and then next thing you know, you're doing this AI.
So it actually came out of Ideas Clyde as a need. So one of our clients was noticing that in Asia, they were really struggling to have good deliverability metrics on email campaigns. And Ideas Clyde was responsible for their global campaigns and also noticed the same issue. And so I started digging into that and trying to understand, well, why is this happening? What is going on in Asia that is so different from the rest of the world? Well, that was easy to figure out, right? They kind of leapfrogged into the messaging preference way before we did here in the United States. And so in emerging countries like China, that was an exploding market for these companies, people didn't even do email. So the idea of like setting up an email campaign for China was like trying to set up a fax campaign. Like, who would do that, right?
That's a good analogy, yeah.
You just wouldn't. You would go straight to where people prefer, and that was all messaging. And in China, that's WeChat is their messaging platform that they're using. But then Japan, they're using Kakao Talk and Line and Telegram, are all of these messaging products, Facebook Messenger too, WhatsApp. So if you look at Asia as a whole, you'll notice that messaging is pretty much how everybody does everything, business and personal communication.
Interesting.
And in Asia, it was really the first geography that crossed the threshold. If you look at internet mobile statistics and you say, okay, what percentage of the web traffic in these countries is primarily mobile traffic versus desktop traffic? In Asia, they crossed that threshold like 10 years ago, right? In the United States, we just crossed that threshold a few years ago, like 2 years ago. But in places like Japan and Korea, they were mobile first many, many years ago.
So it's not known as informal like it used to be.
No, that is the communication channel. It's a formal way to do it. Yeah, you do business on messaging.
That's interesting.
So if you were trying to get a customer deal closed, you would not email them documents.
Right. You wouldn't have to always set up a conference call. You wouldn't have to always do this. It's just shooting kind of notes back and forth.
Yeah, and maybe you're doing a voice memo or you're sending communication back and forth. You'd set up all of your utility is handled through messaging, kind of like Slack. Here what we adopted recently was Slack in the workplace, and we've kind of kept our personal messaging separate from our professional messaging. But in a lot of other places that hasn't happened. They're a lot more integrated in the same platforms.
Gotcha. That's super interesting. So where's the future of this? Where are you guys going with Botco, and where does the expansion look like? What's all the fun stuff?
Yeah, so it's really exciting. We're this last year we were essentially building out our MVP, and we had some really key beta customers, 3 really important customers that helped us test out our thesis, get our technology really proven, get some good metrics, get some visibility into the results that this type of technology could generate for business. And we're really excited that we're finally at that point where we can say, okay, for one of our customers, the bot is handling 80% of all of their inquiries successfully. And that's incredible to think that they went from having to handle this huge volume to now the human handover piece is only 20% of what it used to be.
Wow.
So it's a huge improvement. And it's driving bookings, it's driving appointments, whatever it is that they're wanting to generate, whether it's a sale, a booking, an appointment, that's what we're always helping to generate.
That's super interesting. It's very intriguing. Do you foresee...
Oh, sorry, before
Oh, yeah. Go on.
So you were asking me about expansion?
Yeah.
So now that we're wrapping that piece up, the MVP and beta, we're launching in June in terms of making our product widely available. Up until now, our product has really been only available by invitation.
Gotcha.
Only.
Gotcha. Mm-hmm. And you've all, like you've said, had success doing that thus far. No, it's funny because you hear things and the companies that will be created out of AI, whether it's kind of the Alexa voiceover model to just automated things. Like if you're not on that train now or yesterday, like you're kind of behind the game because it's what it is. It's funny. I have an Alexa. I don't know which one, the flat screen one in my living room. I listen to music and whatnot, and then in my bathroom I have one too. So when in the shower, it's hey Alexa, what's the weather today, or hey what's on my calendar today. And we've become so dependent on these things, but it makes it so efficient. It's hard to go back once you've done something like that. So like if you were to remove that from one of your existing clients that you've been testing this with, I'm sure, they'd feel, naked without it.
Right. Well, because think about on their side, this is now handling a huge amount of traffic for them, essentially, in a productive way, right? So it's yielding positive results for them. And because it also utilizes a channel that people like, right, and people feel comfortable with already, like you don't have to convince anybody to send messages. Like, people already do that. And so it's really about teaching businesses how to communicate with their customers using messaging. Customers already know how to use messages and messaging.
Totally.
It's the businesses that don't know how to use it. And so that's what we're really trying to do is help the businesses figure out how they can scale and utilize messaging effectively to connect with their customers. And you have to have AI to do that. Otherwise, you'd have to hire thousands of people to be typing answers all day long.
And that's the antiquated model of people doing that, handling or hiring so many people or offshoring a bunch of people. The traditional call center models very antiquated now. And it's what's funny when it comes to the real estate side of this piece of people being in an office or at the remote, they've actually proven that communication can be way stronger if people are at home or remote. The communication is stronger. They're emailing each other or texting or whatnot. They're getting responses right away. So it's not like this office where you're walking by someone and talking to them and whether they're annoyed or bad mood, but all of a sudden they're at their office or they're focused and you get a message and they're writing back and it's interesting. It's super intriguing.
Yeah, as humans, we're wired for conversation.
Right.
So we've even looked at content consumption studies that show if I give you a page, same amount of text, 100 or 1,000 words to read, that your attention span is going to drop, just a few sentences in, right? And it's going to be hard for me to convince you to sit through the content the whole time, unless you're really excited about it. But then if I took that content and broke it up into little teeny bits and delivered it to you as a conversation, you would stick with me.
Right.
Because that's how we're wired. We're wired for this back and forth. Like what we're doing right now, this interview. It would be super boring if I just sat here and talked for 30 minutes and you didn't ask anything, right? What makes it interesting is that we're going back and forth.
College, or high school.
Right, lectures just...
But I do the same thing on the micro content side of the full thing. We do the same thing with real estate tours. It's, after 4 or 5 spaces traveling a day, let's take a time out and come back
exactly. It's the back and forth that really works. And so that's why this conversational format has been so sticky, why people will prefer, to carry on this, texting back and forth for a while.
Yeah.
To learn information or to get what they're looking for.
Not to geek out on the human side of things, but it's so cool that companies and people are starting to study the habits of people, whether it be in business to business, whether it be in my world, real estate. It's instead of just saying, let's go shop for 4 spaces, it's like, let's look at the human capital, how they interact with one another, and how they can best create this ecosystem where like real estate thrives for them. So you're maximizing their, productivity or whatever that looks like. The same thing with this. If you're, reaching out to people or your customer and you're going to lose them after a conversation, as long as I'm just talking right now and it's like, okay, done. But if you get little, snippets here and there, it can definitely be more beneficial. I can definitely see the positive about that. What's some examples of where you guys are using this right now? You don't have to say specifically the companies.
Well, I think, I can certainly share the Massage Envy. So they're one of our customers, and they recently launched their bot with us in February. So it runs on our platform, our AI, and we're really excited about Massage Envy's implementation. And one of the things we didn't realize was how quickly we would be training this bot on their domain, essentially on their knowledge. And we were able to get it up and running and essentially fully trained within all of, I would say, 6 weeks.
Gotcha.
Where we went from having maybe 10 instances where a bot didn't quite understand the right response to 0 instances where that is happening, 0 to 1, in a given week. So it's a really great way to see the productivity increase and the accuracy of the bot really improve over time. And we have loved really working with Kaiser on, you guys do a lot in the franchising world. And so it was awesome to see Ty. I went to the multi-unit franchising conference in Las Vegas. And you guys are huge there. Kaiser had a really strong presence. Everybody knows you guys there. And I think this also goes back to the ecosystem thing you were just talking about. It's like you can help businesses like ours not just find the right space, but also connect us up with the customers that would benefit from our technology and make sure that we're close to each other. Right. I think that there's a lot to say about that.
So specifically, what does that ideal client look like? If I'm blank, 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 I should be talking to Rebecca. Who is that person?
I would say it's ideal if you're a big national franchise and you want to create a consistent message across thousands of stores that are all getting pinged daily, either through social media or through messaging or through the website with inquiries, questions, customer needs, and you're struggling to really maintain a consistent approach to how all of those responses are handled, either nationally or globally, then you want a solution like this. It would really help you. And specifically, we've been looking at personal services because that's where people have a lot of, I would say, questions, right? So I'm not just going to go into any waxing place, to get my eyebrows waxed unless I know exactly what product you're using. Is it hypoallergenic? I'm going to have a lot of questions before I decide to sign up and go in.
Right.
And so that's a perfect example. Those kinds of companies get a lot of questions that they're constantly dealing with, and their teams are always several days behind in getting back to people. And that's money they're leaving on the table.
So kind of in wrapping up, what else do you want everyone to know? How can they get a hold of you? What's the future look like for both of your companies that you're currently working for, or running, I should say?
Well, Ideas Collide is always going to be one of my children, right? Because essentially, I helped found it. Fortunately, it's in really great hands, being run by a team, and they leave me alone most of the time, so that's great. They're doing awesome things, which has allowed me to really break away and focus on Botco and really driving, a startup, getting a startup off the ground, which is never an easy thing to do. And then in my spare time, I want to help other female founders, and so that's really my passion project with Girls in Tech, right? Getting girls, founders, there are some amazing entrepreneurs that are very young, in high school even. And so we want to bring them up and get them excited about doing this, now young, we want them to envision themselves as founders and for this to be a possibility for them. So we're having events like a hackathon we're putting on with the City of Goodyear on May 2nd through the 4th. It's called May the 4th Be With You.
Oh, there you go.
And so the City of Goodyear has provided the Goodyear Ballpark for our space. And so it's open to all people, not just women. We want, we need mentors, we need judges, we need community involvement, we need sponsors. So that's a great way to get involved. And then if you're noticing that your business could use a little bit of help from an AI, then call me. Mm-hmm. I don't necessarily have to
call or message.
Message, yeah.
If you don't
call. I'll send you a message in
backwards.
response.
It's like the shoemaker with the holes in his,
Yeah, don't call me, message me. And we'll set up a time on my automated calendar.
Perfect. For some micro content so we can make little snippets.
Perfect.
Rebecca, what's some of the best advice you've ever received as a growing entrepreneur, whether it's from a mentor or a significant other, whatever that looks like, that you would share with someone else?
Wow, the best piece of advice. That's always hard. I think the biggest thing I notice out there for myself and among other founders is simply, I know this is going to sound very woo-woo, but it's like, just believe in yourself. You have to have an idea that you feel so passionate about that you are willing to do really hard things for it, right? Because it's not an easy road, and you will get a lot of rejection, and there will be a lot of challenges. But if you really believe in the idea and you know that you are the right person to do it, then go for it. Like, that's what I would say. And it's amazing, like when I find other people that have that belief in their own idea, I'm willing to do whatever they want me to help them with. I'll make introductions, I'll extend a hand however I can. And people are more willing, the right people will come up and will show up to make it happen, right? Because we can't do it alone, right? We have a community, we need people, we need partnerships. It's not something we can ever do alone. But if we have that true confidence and belief in our idea and willingness to go through the really hard stuff, then everything we need will come. I really believe that.
Love that. So as you guys started expanding and, real estate, whether it's the second or third largest as you all started expanding and looking at the real estate piece of this, the human capital side, putting them into one office, commercial real estate being the second or third largest expense within an organization, share with some of those younger entrepreneurs that are starting to grow, maybe getting some traction, creating some client base, some capital. When would you say they should start approaching the real estate side from what you have experienced? Maybe both the good things that happen to you all, maybe some of the horror stories.
I would say, the moment I realized I needed real estate was my first client meeting that I hosted, where I was like, okay, we can't function out of a coffee shop for the rest of our lives.
Was it at a coffee shop?
Actually, we had rented this little condominium just up the street on Indian School, and we were using that as our office, and it was just a residential space. And that didn't work for having
HOAs
meetings.
Calling and people get mad at you. Yeah.
It was fine. I mean, you have to be scrappy at the beginning, but
Right.
that was before co-working was the thing. So we didn't really have that option. It was like Starbucks or that. I mean, those were the two choices. And Starbucks can get annoying because the grinder goes, and then you're like on a call. And the coffee grinder.
Back with the old school headphones, yeah.
And everyone's like, what is
15
going
years ago.
on back there?
Right.
But that used to be the reality. So I would say once you need to start hosting more meetings and really getting teams to have more dedicated space where they can work together, and that's usually when you get to about 3 or 4 people, you really need some working space together. And unity and culture becomes important even at that stage. Like, people don't realize how important it is from the get-go. And so having a space that you can really call your own, that you can define, that you can create your values around are great. I know a lot of people will try to say, well, I can accomplish that at a co-working space, and sometimes that's the case. But I would say don't let the co-working space define your culture. Like, you should be the one really driving that.
Let the people drive the real estate, not the other way around.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, I tell so many people, it's you kind of just know, like you kind of get it when you start having those successful wins, when you start creating that culture and you want something to reflect it. I think so many people put the wagon in front of the horse, and next thing you know, they're kind of getting involved in a situation where they're in a long-term lease, or they're in a 5-year lease, or they went committed to something that was much longer and more expensive than they thought they were going to go. Co-working is a great short-term, and it sometimes depends on your situation, what your strategy is, long-term situation. But you're right, it's that company's culture. It's whatever one of the millions of co-working spaces now. It's their culture, and you're also in there with a bunch of competition. You know, you look at someone like a Phoenix Market.
Yeah.
The majority of the workers with these co-working spaces are, you know, sales. So they might be working for you today, but they're mingling or rubbing elbows with someone at the little bar next to them, and that's the next shiny object. You know, it's, I believe the statistic is millennials have a lifespan at a company for 18 months. So it's, you can either fight that or figure out how to maximize that.
Yeah.
And co-working might definitely, you know, shrivel that lifespan. But yeah, it's you know, I've spoken to so many people about this, and so many of my clients I've worked with. It's really finding, what's my long-term goal? What am I going to do in 3 to 5 years? Am I going to exit? Am I going to merge this thing? Am I going to grow this thing? Am I going to say I want to be Arizona or Chicago or New York's, you know, blessed child, this huge gem that's exploded, and, you know, hire 500, 600, 700 people? Or is my goal to exit, you know, make my 50 million and go retire? If that's the case, co-working flexibility in your real estate's huge. You know, you can fire people, but you can't fire real estate. So I think, you know, I think so many people get in way over their head on the real estate side, but the real estate side, the piece can be so positive to the impact of an organization, especially when you're creating an ecosystem, you know, right? Not just, like I said, 4 walls where people are all working into it, but a place that can help Generation X with baby boomers, and they help each other interact and exchange information with one another. It can be very positive. But again, I think it, like you were kind of alluding to, depends the long-term strategy with that company. So,
Right. And startups are known to have often very short lifespans. So having some flexibility could be important.
Yeah, and they you know, a lot of people chase the shiny object of so-and-so had a huge raise, and then they go get this beautiful office space. Like, that's cool for them, but that's not everyone, right? That's you got to look kind of within and figure out what the company culture is that you have, and what the, like I said, the goals are for that organization. Making sure, you know, you're doing everything you can to help your company grow, not go spend the money as quickly. Anything else you want to share?
I'm good.
Yeah.
I feel complete.
Thanks,
Noah.
You're welcome. Thank you.
High five.
I appreciate it.